Well, it's an honor to be home in my district, one of 4 counties that I represent and hope to continue to represent should you re-elect me now that we've been redistricted. I was so excited when I saw the lineup of who was speaking today. I spent some time in Holbrook earlier this afternoon at a school that's literally crumbling, and then was able to come down here. So Abe Hamaday and I go back many years when he was just a young puppy before he was in the Army, and he's just a great American. And Blake and I were together at Mar-a-Lago 2 weekends ago with President Trump. I've been honored to have President Trump's endorsement. And Wendy is fantastic because, and your wife too. Where are you, Jeff? Okay. I had a long talk with your wife one day about cryptocurrency. And Jeff Wenninger and I were on the cryptocurrency study committee for the legislature. And I'm glad that he kind of explained to you that private investment in crypto should be something we are able to do. And we want Arizona to be a private cryptocurrency friendly state, which gives us more freedom. It's been a torturous journey at the legislature. If you have followed the efforts we've made toward restoring election integrity, you've seen scores and scores of bills going through. Which ones will survive remains to be seen. But I will tell you that I have fought tirelessly to get rid of the drop boxes and to get rid of the machines, because that is where the fraud has been. And I will also say that the voter rolls, absolutely, are corrupt and have been corrupt for decades. My husband Hal and I have 6 grandchildren, the oldest of whom is 10. And I explained to her one day, I said, Claire, if a team comes to your door here and says, who votes in this house, what would be the answer? And she said, well, Grandma, Mommy and Daddy. And I said, well, what if they tell you that not only Mommy and Daddy vote from this house, but 8 other people do too? She said, well, Grandma, that's not right. I said, exactly. And it was the first time a 10-year-old understood the corruption and the fraud that has been perpetrated since, if you follow social media, Seth Keshel, Army Captain Seth Keshel, and I were on a podcast together once, and he says we haven't had a free and fair election since about 1985. So for all this time we've been complacent, and this has built up. So God bless those of you who are cleaning up the voter rolls, because it's so important. And we have, and Sylvia understands this, we have the thinnest of majorities right now with a 1-vote majority. We just passed in the Senate a bill that says schools can't dictate the mask. And we were all sort of congratulating ourselves. The problem was there's no punishment if a school ignores us. So you say to me, well, Senator, what's the goodness, what's the efficacy of passing something if you don't have punishment built into it? And you're right. But we wouldn't have passed it with punishment in it because we wouldn't have had the votes. And so after one of my colleagues described that on the floor, even though she obviously voted for it, had a little group text going around, you know how that goes. And our president, Karen Fann, said, understand, I agree, but it wouldn't have passed if it had had a penalty in it. And so this is how we've had our right arm tied behind our backs, trying to get things through to restore election integrity. This is why it's so exciting that you have these groups that are going to be eyes on. You have to be there. It's up to all of us. Because they're going to try to cheat again. And as President Trump says, we have to turn out in droves, more and more and more than just enough to get us across. We have to inundate them with turnout. We need to take back the U.S. House, take back the U.S. Senate. And then in going forward, we have about a third of the state Senate turning over. And I'm very hopeful, optimistic, that we will have America First state senators elected. And Jeff, what's the turnover in the U.S. or in the state house looking like? Like 19 guys and gals are changing out. Yeah, it's a huge number. So it's so very important that we really, really stay plugged in. And I couldn't help but think when you mentioned mailing cards to independents, I would submit to you that you should go to their door. You should go to their door if you're a precinct committeeman with your handwritten card to leave in case they're not there, and encourage them and say, I'm your neighborhood political go-to person. I would love to have you in the fold. And then you get them in the fold. It's much more effective if you go meet somebody face to face. Much more personal. And I can tell you, as someone who knocks doors, it's very meaningful, because right now things are very personal with internet and TV and radio. And it's honestly, I can't even watch Fox News anymore, except for Tucker. I mean, that's it. You know, I follow the Epoch Times. I follow OAN. I follow Real America's Voice. And when I talk to voters, they say, well, what are those? And then I explain what they are. So anyway, I'm here to answer a question or two as your senator. I'm happy to do that. Do we have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
What can you do to help the J6 guys get out of there?
What can I do to help the January 6th prisoners? Well, I have a really far, edgy reach on social media. Our son-in-law doesn't like it. They're from Denver. But anyway, I have put that out on social media. Where are you, Elliot Kerwin? And I have shined a lot of national light on that. As a state legislator, I don't have any power, per se, legally, but I do have a voice. And if you've heard my ad on KFYI at 5:50 a.m. down near the Capitol, I have a 60-second ad out talking about Title 42 as well. And I dare say that that ad, plus others, has, I think, influenced Governor Ducey to do something. So one can have a voice if one has the resources. I still haven't been kicked off Facebook. It's just amazing to me, or Twitter. Any day now, I'm sure. I'm on Gab, Getter, Rumble, and all of the platforms. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to thank you for filing for the ballots and standing up to Karen.
You're an inspiration. You're from Russia or Ukraine?
Ukraine.
Ukraine. I've been to Ukraine. I've been to Kiev. And you've seen the other side.
Yeah.
And thank you, Julia. You're an inspiration. Jim, right?
Yes.
I heard about the White Mountain Independent. And I'm glad to be here tonight to hear you describe how, you went in there with the receipts, as Bannon says. And you highlighted it, and you held them to task. And, the liberal media ambushes me on the floor of the Senate, not anymore. And they love to put words in my mouth and attack me. And good old Peter Alisher loves me. Thank you for what you do.
It was thank you for standing up and fighting for us.
That's right.
And we need to hold the people who we elect accountable.
Amen.
And so that's what I got.
Thank you. I so appreciate you underscoring that. Yes, ma'am.
So you obviously do have quite a media presence, and it's not always favorable. What's your strategy to win independent voters who have no?
Exactly. I don't pander and I don't think you're saying that. I don't try to flex to a certain constituency. I do simply tell the truth. And I'm very unvarnished about it. And we have a little snark in there. We have little good night comments at night and everything. But you know, I've been approached all over the country. People come up to me and they say, "You're Wendy Rogers?" I don't know what they expect to see, but and I go, "Yeah." And they go, "Wow, you know, you speak the truth." And you know, I'm almost 68 years old, and like Abe and Blake and Jeff have said, we're not doing this for glory. We've all had successful careers. You know, I was an Air Force pilot. I'm a mom, I'm a grandma. We owned our own business for 23 years. And, you know, we sold it, and this is what I do now. And Hal and I, and it's just so important. And I'll just conclude by saying our daughter-in-law asked me, she said, "When I met you 12 years ago, you weren't like this." I said, "Okay." She said, "No, I mean, you weren't so strident. You weren't so strong and bold." Yeah. And I said, "Times have changed. We have so much at stake." And this is, I guess, what I evolved into. So, you know, the grandma from Flagstaff. I don't know. Sir.
Darn it, I just spaced it.
It'll come to you.
Oh, yes.
Let's go, Brandon.
I don't know if this is an appropriate question. I guess that's what I was going to ask. What's the relationship, considering we're in Arizona, what's the relationship between state elections and how the Navajo Nation plays into it?
The question is state elections and Navajo elections. I actually ran for Congress 4 years ago, and this, of course, was in my area, and I do happen to know that the Navajo Nation has its own elections, as you know, and then, of course, the United States of America federal and state elections are separate, and sometimes it's a different polling location. And that's very troubling and confusing to a lot of Navajo voters who don't know that. And they'll go to one polling location, like in Window Rock, and then have to go to another location to vote federally or for state. I do know that Navajo legislative candidates run every 4 years. The president of the Navajo Nation and the vice president run every 4 years. Depending on what the state or federal office is, I have to run every 2 years, as does a state representative. And then, of course, federally, Blake will have to run only every 6 years.
Well, I mean, like, as far as constituents go, because in my personal opinion, I kind of feel like the Democrat communists have kind of taken over most of them and their minds. I see some of them are trying to resist, or at least kind of awakening to that fact.
I think, to answer your question, the Navajo Nation has Republicans, but they're kind of shy about it, because they would come up and whisper to me, "I voted for you." Because they'd be, you know, military veterans. Did you know that 70% of the Navajo Nation went to World War II? That is such a vibrant heritage. And Hal and I have participated in ceremonies with them in Window Rock. So that I think, to conclude, is a population that we can reach because our message is pro-family. It is pro-social responsibility. And meeting with the Holbrook school principal, as I did 4 hours ago, by the way, I didn't know this. Did you know that the Holbrook school district is 1,500 square miles large? Unbelievable. They have a lot of students who come from the reservation. They drive, in some cases, 45 minutes to get to the bus stop, and then the trip on the bus, one way down to Holbrook High School, is another hour and a half. So he told me that the dormitory, where they have some space for them to stay during the week, the dormitory waiting list is used up in 15 minutes the minute it opens. Yes, this is, he said to me today, many of them have no running water, no electricity. We can minister to these people and bring them into the fold. Republican values, absolutely. Well, thank you, and as I mentioned before, if you need something, I want you to email me, and I want you to put this in the subject line. Met you in Heber Overgaard. If you put that in the subject line, that rises right to the top, and my assistant sees it. And then she says, Senator, somebody wrote you who saw you. And I go, yeah. So, met you in wherever you met me. And you can always follow me, wendyrogers.org, no D in Rogers for Democrat. Thank you.